Hi, it's Sharon here, and I wanted to record a part two to the video that I made a little while ago called How to Solve All Your Problems. And the reason for the part two is just because even though I am the author of the previous video, I kind of fell into the trap myself and I learnt something a bit more about this labeling things as a problem, and I wanted to share sort of that new understanding with you. So this is if you haven't watched How to Solve All Your Problems part one, please do go and watch that video, but it's a very small summary. What I covered in that first video was really about how it's really important to not label something as a problem. That's how we solve all of our problems, is just never to label anything as a problem. Because once we start to label things as a problem, that involves judgment. And then that judgment ends up being turned on either ourselves, or we start to blame ourselves, or we blame others. And then we disempower ourselves because of that blame. And then we aren't able to actually make changes to what we ideally want to change. So if we want to sort of be more empowered in our lives to make the changes, make positive changes, that first video is really all about the trap of creating problems, where really if we just labelled everything an experience without the judgment and then calling it a problem, then life would be problem free. So that's the summary of the first video, but I go into it obviously in a lot more detail. So if you haven't seen that, please go and watch that that video first. So the update on that. So like I said, I fell into the trap. Something had started to happen in 2020 and it moved into 2021, so it was going on for a little while, and it was getting kind of worse and worse and worse. And so I tried to resolve it on the physical level. First mistake. I don't know why I tried to resolve it on the physical level, but I tried to resolve it on the physical level. It didn't work, obviously. And that's when I really sort of sat down to try and figure out what was going on. Now, I am going to do a separate video of that experience in much greater detail, but that's a different video that's coming up and is going to be posted shortly. But suffice it to say is that I had an experience. It was disruptive in my life. I labelled it a problem. I tried to find a physical resolution to that problem. And it made it worse. It didn't make it any better. So then when I sat down and tried to figure out really what was going on, I realised that I'd fallen into that same trap of calling it a problem, creating that problem from it, reinforcing it, and it was holding it in place. So as soon as I realised what I had done, I then knew instinctively, intuitively, what I needed to do to resolve it, which I then did resolve it. Like, it went on for a number of months, and then I actually resolved it in a few days. So the resolution was actually very swift. It was quite fast to the large part, and I wish I had sat down and figured it out sooner. So that's a separate video, but that's all you need to know really as to how this kind of came about, this part two. So why is it important then? So this is the additional understanding really. Why is it important to not label something as a problem? So we already know from a neurological kind of, there's been lots of scientific studies on memory and trauma and what makes a memory stick. And we know that emotion is what makes memory stick, right? If you want to be a big deal in the memory world, where you can remember lists of lots of things, what do? You create a story, and you create something that's meaningful or memorable. How do you make it memorable? It has an emotion attached to it, right? So memory and and emotion is well noticed as bedfellows, if you like, already. And I was reading some scientific studies the other day as well, how conformity, when you say something or you have a conversation where you have a disagreement with somebody, the brain marks that memory. It tags that memory as a point to notice that there may be trouble in the future. So so your brain tags memories because why? Because it's trying to protect you. And it says, well, if you're not conforming with other people's belief systems, that's maybe dangerous for you. And so there's this correlation between the mind and tagging, if you like, memories and experiences, and then warning you about that if it comes up again. Now, this is the reason I mention this, is what I noticed and what part of the problem that I created from labeling this experience as a problem was because I labeled it as this experience as a problem. My mind then went searching for that problem so it could protect me from it. But in the searching, what would happen is that it would find that problem and make it worse for me. So it was reinforcing the thing I was trying to actually avoid. So this is a really important point about, and what do we do about it when our mind starts searching? So once we've labelled it as a problem, the mind starts searching for it, and then it finds it. It finds that problem, reinforces that problem, and then, as per the previous video, starts to blame someone for or something for that problem. And then it sort of makes you feel bad about that problem, disempowers you from solving that problem, and just, it never gets resolved. So we end up in this like downward spiral of when we start labeling something a problem. And once we've labeled something a problem, it's almost a little bit like, well, what do we do now? The mind will start searching because it's trying to protect you. So it'll start searching for examples that this problem exists. And, it really felt like my mind was scanning for this problem. And so, can we just say to the mind, stop scanning? Well, no. It's a bit like if you try and tell someone who's worrying about something, just stop worrying about it. Do you think they stop worrying about it just because you say stop worrying about it? Well, no, the mind doesn't stop scanning just because you say stop scanning. So what do we actually do? So the only way to really stop the mind from scanning for a problem that you have identified is to neutralize it. Okay? If you and neutralizing it is quite an easy way of doing it. So as I said to you, it's not actually a hard process, but this is why I wanted to do this video. Is you can't and I've talked about this before. You can't change what you deny or resist. So acceptance is always the doorway to creating change. So rather than say this problem doesn't exist, I'm just going to ignore it, that's not really going to work. So instead, what we say is, and what we do is, we accept that whatever it is that we've labelled a problem, this experience is going to exist. This experience is existing now, but I'm okay that it exists. I accept it exists, but it's not important to me. We detag, declassify, take the emotion out of what we had called originally a problem. So then the mind goes, oh, this is just something that exists, does it? Is it a problem? Do I need to warn you? Should I scan for it? I need to look after you because the mind is trying to protect you. And he says, do I need to look after this for you? And you go, no, actually, I know it exists. It's fine. So we're neutralizing what we had originally labelled a problem, saying, no, this is no longer really a problem. I know it exists. It probably will still continue to exist, but actually I'm okay with it now. Okay, so it's more about, again, like I said in the first video, is taking that judgment out And it's no longer a problem. It's just an experience that is likely to show up. If it shows up, you're okay with that. And so by doing that, the brain stops scanning. It goes quiet. It goes, oh, I don't have to do anything about that. It's only because we labelled it a problem that the mind thinks, because it's a doer, I must do something about that. So when we stop giving it that instruction, when we neutralise it, when we take the judgment out of it, once we accept something and say, yeah, okay, that's fine, then it doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't have anything to protect you from. So this can be sort of applied to any situation, really. This was something about my own, it was just something was disrupting my sleep. I'll tell you what it is. It's very, very briefly. And it was just that I'd become very sensitive to Wi-Fi signals. And I'm going to do a separate video on this, like I said. I'd become really sensitive. I could physically feel the vibration of machinery scanning for Wi-Fi, and it is one of the literally most annoying feelings in the world. It's so annoying, and it doesn't affect me while I'm awake. You can see I've got a Fitbit on which has a Wi-Fi on it. While I'm awake, it is of no consequence to me, but when I was go to sleep, any Wi-Fi, my boiler has Wi-Fi on it as well. It was an absolute nightmare because it kept interrupting my sleep with this goddamn annoying vibration. So that's how it came up for me, and I resolved it very quickly. And I'm going to say how I resolved it, but that's the key part of how I resolved it. Was one part was no longer labeling it as a problem. You can, and this is why it's important to everything. So this was like an annoyance, and it was disrupting my sleep. But you can apply this principle to anything. You know, we tend to label everything as problems, and then we have all this judgment. We identify with it. We disempower ourselves, and then our mind scans for evidence that this is indeed a problem and it needs to do something about it. But it doesn't mean it's always going to do something positive about it. It just means it's just going to make us stew on it. So for example, weight loss. This is one of the really big ones, weight loss and eating. So when we say, oh, my eating is a problem, my weight is a problem, my overeating is a problem, my comfort eating is a problem, my hunger is a problem, right? We're tagging these as things in our minds and creating problems when it's just eating, it's just food, right? We take all the emotion out of it. It's the emotion that makes us want to eat in the first place, right? Same thing like if, you know, people have a lot of stress in their lives because they've created the problem of time, right? So if we take out the problem of time, right, then our lives become easy. It's just time being ticking by, right? It's the emotion that we start attaching and the problem we start creating. You know, we think of certain relationships as being problems, whether they're with family, colleagues, bosses, neighbours, co-workers, whatever, and we think, oh, they're a problem, or they've got a problem, right? Again, we put all this emotion behind it, and then the brain kind of scans for this problem so that it can warn you this problem, this person is coming up. But it's unnecessary. And all it does is it reinforces something that's quite negative. So when we neutralise it and say, well, this person acts like this normally, I know that they act like this, they obviously have got some undealt with issues, I'm just going to accept that, and I know that that's what they're going to be like, but it's irrelevant to me if that's what they're like. It doesn't impact me, and it's not dangerous to me, which is what the mind is looking for. It's looking for danger to protect you from. It goes, all right, I know that they're an asshole. It's fine. Just accept it, right? So we can do it with anything, right? But it really does transform how much effort your mind places on things. And if you're trying to avoid something because it's unpleasant, well, you're doing the exact opposite by labeling it as a problem. You're actually reinforcing and creating it and disempowering yourself and all of that. So that's why I wanted to do this extra video, is just to sort of mention how easy it is to neutralize it. And it is one of those, sometimes you have to practice at this. I often suggest that you use two very important words, or I should say three really important words. I don't care. I know it exists, but I don't care. I just don't care. Oh, that person's being difficult. Yeah, okay, I recognise that, but I don't really care. It doesn't impact me, so I don't really care. When we don't care, we neutralise something. When we care about something, we kind of amplify it, don't we? So that is part 2 of how to solve all your problems. And it's just a little bit addition to what the original video was, because I thought it was important to say that I fell into the same trap even after I did the video. I fell into the same trap, but I managed to come out of that trap, and that's just by declassifying it again and neutralizing it. And it was literally a matter of days after I followed a certain process that I kind of intuitively knew what I needed to do. And one part of that was neutralizing it as a problem. And for the other couple of steps, please watch the other video.